How important is math in poker?
When I think about how much I rely on math while I'm playing, even while I'm studying, it doesn't feel like it's very much. But the truth is, most, not all, but most of the strong players I know are quite strong in math. And you don't end up using it day in and day out, but a lot of the concepts that apply to math apply to poker. So the early math you learn is, this hand against this hand. What are the equities? If I have a flush draw, how often am I going to hit that flush draw across one street, across two streets? And those are things, though, you don't have to be good at math for that. You can just memorize a very small list of percentages, and that's really all it takes. And by the way, a lot of people who are very strong players aren't great at that. I remember when I was kind of new to poker, but was playing very seriously. I was a sit and go player, and sit and goes, you get all in a lot. And so you get very good at estimating what this hand's equity is against this other hand. It's what you study, and it's what you just see day in and day out. And I remember I was watching I think it was a high stakes poker, and Antonio Esfandiari was on TV, and there was this all in that happened, and he said something like, somebody asked him, I think, what the equities were, and he said, something like 60-40, but don't, whiz kids out there, don't make fun of me. And he was right. He was wrong, like not by a lot, obviously, but he was wrong by an amount that was obvious to me. And I was like, how does a great player like Antonio not know this? And the reality is, as I kind of progressed as a player, I've been less accurate in things like that because they're just not that important. Now, math as a concept and kind of the ability to understand mathematical concepts, I think, is very important. And if I had to put a percentage to it, as far as the makeup of a poker player, I would say that I would call logic more important than math. But logic is, if you study logic in school, it's under the umbrella of math. Could also be under the umbrella of philosophy, but it's a math kind of thing. So those kind of go together. Understanding statistics a little bit is nice. Being able to do, I think what's helpful is being able to do very rough math quickly, and not accurate math quickly. If you ask me to, what's 7 times 14 minus 5, I'm probably going to get to that faster than, like, I don't know, 80% of people, but not 95% of people. I'm not like a super expert in math like that, but getting just a rough idea for, to give a poker example. All right, so I know that, based on the way that he played pre-flop, he's going to have flopped a set like somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 8% of the time on this board. And then now that I've bet and he's called, when he would have folded, let's say half his range, he would have raised some of it. Well, now that's probably like a little bit less than doubled. So maybe if it was 5-ish%, now it's 10-ish%. Things like that are important. And it doesn't matter if it's actually 10 or 14 or 6. I'm in the ballpark, and that's good enough to be able to think through a hand. But as a percentage of your skill, I think math, or percentage of important attributes in poker, I think math, I would say, is a third. And I think with logic included, kind of math logic is maybe a third. And I would say, no, you know what? I'm going to amend that. I think math logic combined is maybe 40%. I'm going to say that 30% is self-awareness. I think self-awareness as a poker player is hugely underrated. Not only in being able to kind of choose the right games, understand where you stand relative to your opponents, but also to understand, what kind of studying works best for me. What kind of fears do I have at the poker table that lead me to make mistakes, and how do I combat them? Self-awareness just all around is hugely important. So I'd put that second to math. I think to round out the final 30%, a lot of that is I guess you could call psychology, but psychology, empathy, understanding other players is probably, 20%. And then you have another 10% of miscellaneous things that if I sat here and thought for 5 minutes, I could list them, but I'm not going to do that. But math is important. But like I said, there are some great players who are excellent at math, not very self-aware, and not great at psychology. The fact of the matter is, like, nobody's excellent in all these things, and there are some great players who are bad at math. They're just flat out bad at math. Probably in every case, though, they are able to use logic, maybe not in a book smart way. Like they may not have done well on tests in school and like may have flunked out of school. But if you ask them, coming up with a logic question on the fly is kind of difficult. I guess I'll just use a poker example because that's easier. But just thinking through, like, okay, I know this player raises way too tight. They're just way too tight. So now I've raised, they've called, and now it's my turn to act on the flop. How should I treat them differently than another player? You need to be able to, you need the type of logic that can let you say, okay, well, I know that they were tighter pre-flop. So now that we're on a different street, we're on the flop, they're going to have a stronger range of hands than I'm used to playing against. And as such, I should adjust my play in this way or this way. You do need that kind of logic. But being good at arithmetic, being good at algebra, it helps, but it's not necessary.
Do you have any lucky socks or shirts, etc., that you wear when you play?
No. And if you ask me, do I believe in luck in terms of, can an item make you more lucky? I would say no. And I think that's what most of my peers would say as well. But I do think that we don't necessarily always act like it. And so I don't have anything that I wear or use that I think is lucky. But there is one story that comes to mind, which is, so I used to play cards with my friends growing up, starting at age, 13 through the end of high school. And probably for a few years would play like 3-4 times a week. It was like all we did when we hung out. And it was, poker games that I've never seen spread in casinos anywhere. But we played them back then. It was fun. I never took it really seriously. It wasn't until later in life that I started thinking about poker really strategically. So I was like an above average player in our group. No, I wasn't like head and shoulders above everybody. Certainly. I don't think I was the best. But anyways, on one night we were playing and someone notices in the pot that there's a $1 bill. And on top it says www.where'sgeorge.com. And on the bottom it says, or maybe on the back, it says like, see where, check where I've been and see where I go next. And so, we made some kind of comment about it and just kept going on with our night. The next time we played, it showed up again. Whoever had won it that night brought it back. And this, and again, we commented on it, maybe made a joke about it. Nothing particularly funny because there's not a lot of material to work with there. It showed up again and again. And actually it showed up so often and for so long that I was just surprised that nobody spent this particular $1. If I assumed that the money that was circulating in our game would sometimes get spent or often get spent, but it kept showing up. And I went to the website. This was back before smartphones. So my house on my computer, and it did what it said. You enter the serial number of the $1 bill. And then basically what'll happen is previous people who had gone to this website, probably somebody initially did it, said, okay, I'm in Nebraska. This dollar bill is here right now. And so over time it would, you get to track where it went. And eventually, after a while, one night, this probably went on for, I don't know, 6 months. One night I won it, and I decided that I liked it. And so I just didn't bring it back to the game. I didn't spend it. I just kept it. And I didn't think that this was good luck. Like that never entered my mind. I didn't think it was lucky. I just liked it. And now it had some sentimental value because it just been a part of what we'd done for so long. And I didn't think about it again. It stayed in a drawer in my, my room growing up. I was still in high school. So a few years pass, and a friend of mine from that game won a tournament online. He won $30,000, and this became like the talk of our group of friends. I think I was 18 at the time, and he actually reached out to me specifically, and he said, Phil, I've been taking poker kind of seriously. I picked up some books and have learned to play well. I think you'd be really good at this. And I said, okay, well, I like to gamble. That sounds fun. So I picked up some poker books, and that actually was the start of my poker career. And it was around that time that on a trip back home from college, I found that bill in my drawer. So I think it was probably between my freshman and sophomore year of college that I found that bill, and I put it in my wallet and I brought it back. Never looked it up. But I mean, I knew where it had been the last few years. It had just been sitting in my drawer in North Potomac, Maryland. So I brought it back in my wallet. I didn't really think about it much, but if I were to believe in luck, I could say that it was around that time that a lot of good things started happening to me. I started to win at poker. The difference between my freshman and sophomore year at college is that in my sophomore year, I kind of found a lot of like-minded people to myself, and made some real friendships that have lasted me a very long time. And I think kind of, in a sense, kind of found myself in a few ways that year. And yeah, so things, I don't know, went well for me. I never believed in luck. I didn't take the bill out and look at it very often, but every few years I would remember it because it's just sitting in my wallet, hidden in one of those small pockets, folded up. And I was actually thinking about this recently because, why was I thinking about it? Somebody had said, I read something about luck, and I thought about it. And I drew this connection, made this, oh, actually at that time in my life, something good did happen. And, I never actually looked up the bill, but it's been with me this whole time. I still have it. It's been in my wallet for 17 years now. And so I don't know. That is the item that I guess I have with me. I never think about it. I still to this day do not think it's lucky, honestly, but I just like it. So you could say that's my superstition.